Hello, beautiful souls. You're at the Indigo Rose Lounge. This is your host, Alyce Dylan. And we're going to go around again to another subject, mirror work, that I have touched on before. But we're going to go at it from a different direction because I've had people say to me, but Alyce, what does that mean? The life is a reflection. What does that mean? So let me try and go at this from a different angle and let's see how far we get, right? So there you were, sailing off in the cosmos. This spirit that started out as a spark, and you dove into the mineral kingdom and you gave your best efforts to getting atoms to stick together, and you learned about transmutation and you learned about physicality. And then into the vegetable kingdom you went, and there you learned about growth and photosynthesis and chemical reactions, and but still very much standing still unless you were currently doing some algae in the sea. Maybe you drifted, but generally one place for a very long time or very short time. But in the vegetable kingdom, your spirit self picked up a whole bunch of new information, and then on you went to the insect kingdom and the animal kingdom, and you learned how to operate limbs, and you learned about breathing and flying and soaring and walking and feeling, even because, animals have feelings too. What they don't have, though, is the rational faculty. It is exceptional to the human experience. And so that's why our goal was always to have the human experience. What happens in the human experience, and this is where a lot of people get lost, because, we speak of spirit, we speak of soul, which is which, what is what. So spirit is eternal. Your soul is endowed in the human experience. So just like your body is to the human experience, so the soul is to the next world. So the soul enables you to carry on after this world. So in you came to your human experience, you plopped in. When the doorway opened, perhaps all the possible opportunities for birth were narrowed down to a selection based on the frequency of your spirit self and what it had accumulated from what had gone before. And there you had this selection, and you chose that one, and in you dove, and you gave life to this exceptional human experience. And with that, you also picked up a bunch of DNA, and that human experience package would have come with this DNA baggage and this ancestral line, and perhaps there were some preceding links there. Perhaps some of this ancestral line you'd hung out with in the animal kingdom or in the as trees, or there's a lot we don't know. Here's what we do know. We do know that the human experience is very much based on frequency. We know that as you think, so is your reality. How does that work? Well, our thoughts determine our frequency. Our frequency determines what comes to us, because life works on the principle of like attracts like. So, as living organisms, we are electrical form, we are energetic beings, we are radiating, and we are radiating a certain frequency, and that frequency helps to determine the road in front of us. So, of all the possible outcomes for today, your outcomes of today or the happenings along your path today are narrowed down by what frequencies you are tuned into. So some of these frequencies can be determined, some of them can be on purpose, and some of these frequencies just are. They're sometimes based on perhaps a piece of ancestral baggage, perhaps they're based on a belief system you picked up as a child. Some of it is conscious, some of it is entirely subconscious. But all of it makes up your frequency that tunes you to a certain, if you like, radio station, although it's more like a manifestation station. And that then determines what doors open for you and what doors don't, and it's a bit more complicated than that, but let's just go with that for a moment. All right, how are we different? Us indigos, the spiritually perceptive, the sensitives, the intuitives, how are we different? A lot of our frequency is determined in childhood. And even the white coat community will tell you that things like addiction and certain propensities are determined in childhood by childhood trauma. So if we have these, that means that we're holding something that we don't want to sit with in the present. So there's something in our being that if we were just to quieten ourselves and sit there, this part of ourselves would be unbearable to sit with. That's the addiction trigger. When sitting quietly with ourselves is unbearable, we need to look for distraction. That distraction can be doom scrolling, it can be watching TV, it can be pouring ourselves into our work, or then sometimes it gets more harmful in the physical addiction stage. Okay, but these building blocks of ourselves, a lot of them are set about in childhood experiences. And we need to understand clearly the difference between the childhood experience of a five sense child, which we now know due to the SCI study, the five sense children have an intron that stops the spiritual perception, it stops them picking up energetic data. So the normal sixth sense, spiritually perceptive children, or what we also call indigos or HSPs, there we are in our childhood and events occur. And these can have huge impact later in life, especially if they're undigested and unresolved. So I want to give you an example. An example might be that you witness, this is a common one. A lot of clients of mine have this one. As a child, as a small child, you witness someone being mean to an animal. So, not necessarily animal cruelty at its highest degree, but just someone being mean. Daddy comes home and kicks the dog, or mommy throws the dog outside and it's whining and whimpering, and they ignore it. Or you see your parents being mean to the dog. You've bonded with the dog. You know the dog as an indigo child. You feel the dog. You've connected with the dog. And there are these two people, one of them, who are your support system. They are your survival mechanism. And here they are being mean to the dog. Now, as a sixth sense child, you're now in agony. You're now in pain because you're empathing with the dog. So you're sad, you're almost crying, you're in tears. But you look at this parent, and this parent who do you depend on for your survival has been mean to the dog. And you can't reconcile that because you love this adult. At the very least, you're dependent on them. And they've been mean to the dog, which is unacceptable to you. As an indigo child, it's completely unacceptable to cause pain to anything, animal, tree, anything. It's unacceptable. How do you reconcile it? Well, you don't. You don't. You can't intervene with this parental figure because that could jeopardize your survival. It's also still very unacceptable that the dog is outside and has not been comforted. And so you create a loop. You create this loop of code that says this behavior is unacceptable, but somehow the people that I depend on think it's both acceptable or they don't mind, and I can't reconcile this. And so I'm going to isolate this trauma somewhere in my body. I'm going to stash it somewhere, and it's going to carry on in a loop of pain and sad and unacceptable and unacceptable but survival, but unacceptable but survival, but unacceptable but survival. And then I'm going to carry on with my life. I'm going to grow new things, gain new interests. And then one day, maybe in my 20s, I'm walking down a road and I see someone kick a dog and I lose my mind. I lose my mind. I pick up a brick and I throw it at them or something similar. at least, something worthy of great trouble. And in fact, every time you witness cruelty to an animal, it triggers you beyond reason, beyond the point of just saying, no, that was not okay. You literally get triggered atomically, which is maybe completely out of character, or maybe it's not so out of character, but at least it's not in line with how you might respond to just about anything else unacceptable. So these things will show up for this individual that I'm making an example of, someone who experienced this trauma towards animals in their childhood, but their parents accepted it, so they created a loop. And now, if you can imagine, that loop over the years has become a boil. It's become this little wad of painful frequency that's been encapsulated and it's been stuck there. And this individual will then come upon people being mean to animals more often than the normal statistic. Why? Because life is presenting to that person the opportunity to cleanse this particular boil, to lance it, to get rid of this incongruous loop that's been going on in them since their childhood. And if their only response to cruelty to animals is pick up bricks and start whacking people, they will never cleanse the lesson. So here's how to recognize if you have one of these eternal loops or never ending loops. Is there something in your life or in your experience that triggers you beyond what anything else does? Is there something that really sends you for a loop? Just a subject, just some kind of behavior of others, even a behavior of your own, just a happening that, first of all, seems to show up in your life more than would be normal, and secondly, really triggers you. I mean, it really pushes your buttons. And now, this is how we use the life is a mirror. Because if something keeps occurring outside of yourself, it's really an opportunity to say, gosh, this keeps coming up. I wonder why. I wonder what it is stuck in me around this issue that keeps bringing this kind of happening into my landscape. Why does this keep coming onto the horizon of my experience? And if you and 9 times out of 10, you will not remember the incident. There will be an incident somewhere in childhood where an impactful experience created a dichotomy with survival or with alignment with your parents. And so you would have created an isolated loop. Now, why are the indigo children more affected by this? Because while young 5 sense kids can have this experience in something they overhear or something they see, indigo children also have this experience with things we just feel. So picture this: an adult, or your mother. Your mother is in pain, huge emotional pain, but she's hiding it very well, and she's smiling and she's carrying on. Now, to the 5 sense child, they'll look at the smile and they'll look at her words and maybe not respond to that. Whereas the 6th sense indigo child will respond. And here would be the dichotomy. So let's say daddy said something in the kitchen. And while mommy laughed and smiled, maybe what you felt was pain. You felt her pain, which was unacceptable. For someone you love to be in pain is not acceptable. But then they both smiled and laughed and kind of carried on. And how is that okay? So it creates that dichotomous loop that says, no, hold on. She was just in pain, but these two people who I depend on for my survival just treated her pain like it was nothing, like it was fine. And I can't reconcile that to myself. You see? And so we create this loop of undigested experience. And the five-sensed parents don't understand that it's not just their words and their faces that the indigo child sees, it's what they're feeling that we see. And so while the five-sensed children might have trauma related to things that were said or things that were done in their environment, indigo child will have these pockets of trauma related to what was felt in their environment. And those things will come up in our lives, at least on the horizon, whether or not we experience them ourselves or whether we witness it being experienced by others, and we will have an incongruent reaction to it. And therein lies the work. The work lies in identifying the happening and saying, wow, okay, there's the happening. I seem to have an out of whack response to that. Not sure why. All right, let's see, am I having any physical symptoms that parallel with that or correlate with that? And then pull out, say, Louise Hay's blue book, little blue book, and look at the symptoms and see if there's a correlation there. And then maybe do some meditation on it, maybe have a feel around for it, and see if you can explore whatever it is that is really getting your goat. And in that, if you heal that, if you find the incident, and you won't have, a lot of the time, you won't find the memory. But if you can find at least what the memory could have been about, find the trigger point, find the truth that triggers you, and then tap on that, or give yourself Reiki about that, or send Reiki to that, or whatever healing process you resonate with well, apply the healing to that, and you'll find that you'll start to clear away the childhood traumas that then leave us with these triggers. So that's how you can use the mirror to serve you very well. I was having a chat with a therapist friend of mine, and to all you therapists and practitioners out there, I really, really encourage you to find some friends who are also therapists and have exchanges, because, healing is an active principle. We need to be sitting in it, not just being a channel for it, but actually sitting in it in order to maximize its output. When you're on your healing path, at the same time, all of your outputs will be amplified. So, anyway, I was sitting with a therapist friend of mine. We were doing our exchange, and they were talking to me about some of the clips I've made recently about the victim triangle. And they said to me, I had it in my head in a different language. Of course, I understood the dynamic under the drama triangle narrative, but I hadn't made the connection to the conditioning and to people being trapped in it. And she said, now that I've seen it, I'm seeing it everywhere. I'm seeing it over there. I'm seeing it with that client. I'm seeing it with that client. I'm seeing it everywhere now that I'm aware of the ability of people to get caught in this paradigm of persecution. And so we had a chat about the different clients she's dealing with and their situations, not by name, of course. We don't share confidential information. Of course we don't. But the dynamics around different people and how they were stuck and what was possible and what the best suggestions would be. And then we came to the end of the examples, and she said, okay, well, just thought, I said, no, we're not done. We're not done. Well, she said, no, that's really it. Just those three clients. Here's the thing. You wouldn't be seeing it, and they wouldn't be coming to you if it wasn't also in you. So what is it in you that these things are resonating around? And wow, then there was another whole long conversation. She had a narcissist parent. She was conditioned to that behavior too. But you see the knock-on principle that life is a mirror principle. Life always brings us, whether we're therapists, whether we're ordinary, everyday human beings, life always brings us opportunities to heal something in us. And if it's in front of us, it is about us, always. And sometimes it can be about us just in an affirming way. Like someone can come to you with an issue you have resolved, but it's an opportunity for you to look at that issue and say, yep, still resolved. And there we go. And you can share your healing frequency with whoever's with you, and that benefits them and benefits you, and it reinforces your healing. But there it is. Life is the mirror. So I encourage you, if you're seeing a pattern of behavior outside of yourself, turn inward and find the reflective impulse or history or sadness or little broken bits that are reflective of that inside of your own self, and start the healing there. Because the other advantage is, once you heal it internally, the mirror stops externally. So when we go around life trying to fix other people's behavior, trying to fix things on the outside, it's rather like going up to a mirror and putting lipstick on your reflection. It's not, doesn't change anything. If I truly wish to address something in the world, I address it in myself first, and then the reflection changes. I know, hey? Isn't that a big one? Yeah. Well, there it is. And all of this is to why? Is to teach us and to give us more and more space to love, always.